Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are on the update 1.101 dev server, or as it's known, update Raining Fire. And what we're going to be doing on this dev server in this video is having a look at the ground vehicles that are going to be available in update 1.101. Another thing to also mention, since this is the first video from the dev server that you will see from me, understand that, as always, the dev server is not a final production, therefore some things may change when they come to live. I will try and keep on top of keeping you informed when it comes to videos going forward, and also when it comes to bugs and stuff, understand that there are some bugs on the dev server, and hopefully they will be fixed by the time it goes live. One of the bugs that you'll probably see quite a lot is the coaxial machine gun on everything actually fires straight forward, whereas normally, obviously, it turns with the gun and the turret, but don't worry, I'm sure that that will be fixed. So, as I said, we're going to go through the ground vehicles that are coming out in the update. The first thing to also mention before we get into the new ground vehicles, though, is there is some stuff which has been added to pre-existing ones. Certain German tanks have added anti-aircraft machine guns, the Panzer III-M, the Panzer III-N, the Panzer IV-H, the Panzerwagen 4J, the Panther A and G, the Tiger IIs, all have them as well. And if you want to have a look at what this anti-air machine gun looks like, it's basically just an MG34 put on top of the vehicle. If you want to have a look at it when it comes to one of the later vehicles, like the Tiger II 105, this is what it looks like. It's just a Diddy machine gun on the top, so it'll give you a little bit of extra firepower against lighter targets, and also some other stuff. Something else has also been added to the German vehicles. So you know how we had Ostketten before? Well, guess what we have now? Yes, it's Winterketten. And what Winterketten does, as you can see, plus 2% of traction characteristics. I'm sure they'll make the tracks a little bit more beefy as well. You can see it makes the vehicles a thick boy. So you can see here the extra wideness on the tracks, so be able to turn a little bit better and do all of that wonderful stuff. So yeah, both of those have been added to some of the vehicles. The Brummbär has also got an Ostketten modification now. The Panzer III-E, F, J, J1, L, M, and N all have the Winterketten that is available. So let's get into these new vehicles. The first one is German, and it is the TAM 2C. This is an upgrade of the Argentinian TAM that we already have in the game, and the upgrades that it gets are pretty significant. First of all, this machine does get thermals. It gets gunner and commander thermals on it. It also gets an interesting new mechanic which has come to the game, not just for the TAM 2C, but for other machines. This is the laser warning system. So basically, when something is tracking you with the laser from the air, we tested it with many different helicopters. The one it seems to work with is stuff like H-1Zs with Hellfires and other machines which have laser-guided munitions from the air. It will give you this little circle, which is around your bottom left 3D model, and then it will give you a direction of where you are being tracked from. So it's actually quite a nice little mechanic. It does mean that you have extra information on the battlefield, and if you want to see more of it, I did do a Twitch stream earlier, so therefore you can have a look at the Twitch VOD. We did some testing at the end of that VOD, so you can have a look at it. But everything else on this TAM is pretty similar, apart from the fact that it gets access to some gnarly rounds. So stock, it does have Heat FS DM12, but that's quickly upgraded into DM33 as a rank 1 modification. Then it gets DM63, which isn't a new round. It's been in the game for a while. It's on a few vehicles which don't really get played too much, but now, since it's on a German vehicle, or a German tech tree vehicle, I'm sure it will see a lot more play. So 436, 368, 252 across the board, which is kind of nice for it. Other things as well, it does have a 4-man crew. This thing should be able still to get hull broken. There isn't really any massive changes to the armor, just a bit of additional side skirts and also a bread basket on the back. Everything else is pretty similar to it. But yeah, the main thing is the addition of the thermals, the addition of the new round, and the laser warning system, which is really nice to see. The next two vehicles are two top tier or top ranking Soviet vehicles. We have a rank 6 T-72B 1989, and then we also have the B3, which is coming in. Now, the place where these two are coming in, so the first thing is the 1989 is going to be folded after the T-72B. So no matter what, in order to get access to these two new vehicles, you are going to have to research the T-72B. And that should be completely fine, it's not, a huge deal in order to get access to the two new vehicles that are on offer. And the T-72B 1989, the main difference between it and the T-72B standard is the addition of Contact 5. You can find this on the turret. It's these ERA blocks that you see here. It gives 120 millimeters of kinetic protection, 400 millimeters of chemical protection. There's also the Contact 5 on the side here as well, and then a little bit on the front as well, which is covering the upper glacis. Everything else seems very, very standard on this T-72B, has access to the 3BM42 and the 3BM22 as well, which is incredibly standard, and of course the Heat FS. Everything else is pretty similar, which is probably why it's folded. The T-72B3, though, is quite a large upgrade over those other two T-72Bs that we have, but it does come in two forms. There is a massive upgrade that it gets with a rank 4 modification, the UBH. So if we uninstall this for a second, we can have a look at what it's going to look like more in a stock configuration. So what the T-72B3 has is it has an 840 horsepower engine, which is the same as the 1989. It's a little bit heavier because it has a little bit more armor on it. It still has the Contact 5 all over the place, as you can see, and it also gets the same rounds. The 3BM22 and the 3BM42, you can see that it does get an upgraded ATGM though. It gets the M1, where this just gets the standard 9M119. So yeah, I suppose that's kind of nice. Has a little bit more penetration, and I'm sure some better characteristics, and also obviously the TB3 UBH upgrade. The other massive difference between the 1989 and the B3 is the addition of thermals. So the the T-72B3 gets access to thermals, whereas the 1989 does not. So you can see right here. If you want to see what those thermals look like, I'll show you right now. We'll put on a nice skin. Oh, never mind, don't have one. So we'll just go straight in. But yeah, when it comes to the rounds, like the ammunition's exactly the same, which is kind of a surprise. I thought it would be slightly better. All of them have the 3-man crew, of course, 2 in the turret and the driver. But yeah, these are the thermals. I apologize for the engine sound. They've changed it. It's quite loud while you're inside. It doesn't have commander thermals, though. So yeah. That is the standard B3 that you can get. But the big massive upgrade for this, and I would actually advocate this be a separate vehicle entirely, is the rank 4 modification, the B3 UBH. This changes the B3 from its 2011 modification into its 2016 variant or modification. You can see it adds way more armor and a new type of ERA, which is known as Relict ERA. It adds 150 millimeters of kinetic protection and 600 millimeters of chemical. So have fun with that stock Heat FS. Also adds a bunch of slat armor, which is generally used against stuff like RPGs, but it's still technically 50 millimeters extra of add-on armor. The other thing as well is it still keeps the Contact 5 on the front, so that isn't changed, but it does add some Relict on the side of the turret as well, so once again, just way more survivable. The other thing is it changes out the engine, 1130 horsepower engine instead of the standard 840 that you get on the standard version. Still keeps the 3-man crew and all of that, so basically makes this machine way more survivable. You can still, shoot this thing where you would normally, shoot it, so you can still shoot it in the driver's port if you can aim for that. And oh, by the way, the ballistic stuff, like the shell stuff, has been implemented, so we'll see how that goes on. You can still shoot it here as well, through the track, which is generally the shot I go for to hit the ammunition. The Relict doesn't cover that area. But against stuff like Heat FS, this thing is going to be really effective. You can see nearly over 1,000 just from 500 meters on the side. You can see over here, we're looking It's 1100 to 1600, and then of course 1600 on the turret. So the weak spots that are available are really small on stuff like the T-72 when using heat, but you can still hit them. Like they still exist. You're just not going to do as much damage. So yeah, it's a very much upgraded T-72B3 with a lot of bells and whistles, and I believe this is the one that they use as the standard in the Russian army today. We did a few speed tests. It seems to be just slower than the T-80U, but you would guess it would be because of all this extra armor that they've put onto it. The next vehicle is for Japan, and this is the Chiha LG, or as it's colloquially known, the long gun. This is a Chiha chassis, which has on top of it a 120mm ship gun. So there was a few of these tested in World War II, and it's just, as I said, like a Chiha chassis, so it doesn't have a ton of armor or anything, with a crew of 5 on it, so the stat card's slightly wrong, but it has a crew of 5. 4 on the top, 2 loaders, a commander and a gunner, and also a driver, and it's just as simple as this. It's just a massive gun which is designed to knock out anything in front of it. It does only get access to HE shells, which is completely fine, because they pen 50, 43, 23, and since it's a 1.7 vehicle, you're going to go up against, you know, stuff which you should easily be able to pen. So it's just one of those, I suppose, big guns of Japan. This one is slightly different to the other derp guns we've had, though, because it is a long barrel, so it actually has pretty good muzzle velocity, as you can see. So the muzzle velocity actually helps it out quite a lot here. But just understand that it's kind of open to the elements, you know. It can just get strafed once by a plane and just die. Like, there's no cover for the crew at all. The muzzle velocity is 780 meters per second on the shell right now, which is incredibly good. And as I said, comparing it to the other derp stuff, so like the Horo's round goes at 290. So you can see it's just going to be much easier to hit targets with, and just a little bit of fun. They've also changed the Type 74, and it's supposedly turning into the Type 74F. Now, take this with a pinch of salt, what I'm about to say, because there's a little bit of confusion when it comes to this, whether the Type 74F is going to be a new vehicle. This is not in the notes, so just understand that, but the Type 74 model has been changed. It's added these little areas here, which should be about 10 millimeters of armor, and what these are designed for is to have a basic like scoop, or to have like a plow on the front, to be able to move stuff, or to be able to create things in front of it, kind of just a spade idea. So this isn't actually modeled in the armor model yet, you can see right now, but it should be similar to how like the Type 90B works, where it has like the little pads on the front, like these bits, the 10 millimeters of armor, but it won't fundamentally change the Type 74. I think they're just making it into the last production model, but we'll have to see, as I said. The next vehicle is a box. This is the CM25, and what the CM25 is, it's another tow launcher vehicle. Has access to a 12.7, doesn't have access to a lot of armor, but does have access to 5 crew members who all sit inside, apart from, of course, the gunner, who pops out the top. The difference between this and a few of the other ACGM launchers is it does get access to a tow 2, so as an upgrade, 800, 693, 400, you're going to be able to go through whatever you find, which is kind of nice. The other thing as well is it does start off with negative 20 gun depression, so that seems to have been fixed on a lot of these models, which had pretty bad gun depressions in previous updates. And also, it's a rank 6 vehicle, which is a little bit high. I think it should be a rank 5, but, you know, it doesn't matter too much. It's obviously ranks are just designed to get you, moving around the place. So, generally, when I look at the CM25, it's another box, so it does have some pretty cool camos though, which is very true of pretty much all of these Chinese vehicles. A lot of fun when it comes to stuff like this, but it doesn't have access to thermal sights, it doesn't really have access to anything crazy like that. The only real difference, as I said, between this and other carriers is the fact that it has access to a tow 2. So it's going to be able to maim a lot of stuff at the level, but obviously the muzzle velocity, or the velocity in general of the ATGM, is still going to be slower than the majority of the vehicles that you face. The next vehicle is French, and it is the Premium Samoa SM. There was obviously a dev blog for this vehicle. This isn't the standard skin, this is the standard skin here, just the general French green that you see quite a lot of the times. It does sit itself at 7.3, and this is its brother, the AMX50. The main difference between the two, as you can see, is the hull. The hull layout is slightly different on the two vehicles. They have very similar turrets on them, and the hull itself, you're looking at about 140 to 150 millimeters of protection on the upper glacis. The side is only 50 and the back is only 45, so the general armor of this machine isn't really going to matter unless you shoot it in the upper turret, where it has like 240 millimeters of pen. But the main thing is it has access to the 100 millimeter, which has a ton of muzzle velocity, 1,000 meters per second at 7.3, plus a 4-second reload to follow up that gun, which pens 273, 219, 94, which is incredibly good for the level. This, if you've ever played the AMX50, the AMX50 can be a monster. If you've ever played the Lorraine 40T, if you've ever played any of these auto-loading vehicles from France, they're all incredibly fun. The Samoa, the difference between it is it's slightly larger, slightly taller, so therefore it will be a little bit easier to see, but everything else is very similar on the vehicle. One thing to note about the Samoa as well, it does have some really nice animations. Doesn't have shell ejection, unfortunately, but I'm sure it'll get it at some point. But as you can see with the gun sounds lovely, but look at that at the back. Isn't that really nice? You know, you can see it there. And of course you have the exhaust out the back too. So yeah, just top marks all around in my opinion when it comes to the Samoa. It does look like a wonderful vehicle. Crew of 5 as well, 3 in the turret and 2 in the bottom. So if you get your turret popped, there is only the, auto loader there, which has 8 pieces in it, so you don't have to reload until you use up those 8 shots, which most of the time you're not going to use 8 in a general engagement. So there is a bit of ammo in the back of the turret here behind the loader, but it's going to be very hard to one-shot this vehicle unless you shoot it from the side. So yeah, the next vehicle is the Swedish one, and this is the STRV-104. This is a rank 6 battle rating 8.7 Centurion, and this is the 1990s modernization of the Centurion. It's really actually nice to see it. It's a vehicle that I have looked into for a long time, and they basically just added a ton of stuff to it to try and make it a little bit more combat effective when it came to battles. So what they've added to this Centurion is the ERA. Yeah, explosive reactive armor. It's a Blazer ERA, so the same stuff which is on the Shot Cal, I believe. So it doesn't do anything really against kinetic, only 5mm, but against chemical, 260mm, which is pretty impressive. The other thing that the STRV-104 adds is access to an APFS DS shell, 337, 284, 195, which is quite nice, a laser rangefinder as well, but unfortunately no thermals for this vehicle. Right now it does sit at 8.7, and the place it's going to be in the tech tree is between the STRV-121 and the STRV-103C. So everything else is similar on this vehicle, has a 650 horsepower engine, so still going to struggle a little bit with the maneuverability when it comes to this vehicle, because of course, it's a it's a Centurion, but it's nice to see it, just because it is one of those standard vehicles that you see coming out of Sweden. And also it has this beautiful camouflage on it, which I really, really like. But yeah, that is the ground vehicles, which are at least on the dev server right now. There are some other changes when it comes to a few of the ground vehicles, which I'll go through in later videos, but that is basically it. So hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. I'd like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Battling Bacon, Blackie, Chris Giltnane, Conte Baraka, Daniel Stanton, Elove Goat, J. Wilt, Martinez, Trigger Hippie, Universe, Eugens Terry, and also I'm Devilish and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.